later this spring, John Lydon, probably still better known here as Johnny Rotten, once of the Sex Pistols, begins a spoken word tour reflecting on his life and career, evenings of conversation and audience questions. It's called I Could Be Wrong, I Could Be Right, which is perhaps a bit more reflective, a bit more self-deprecating than we expected. Last year was very grim for him. He lost his beloved wife Nora, who had lived with Alzheimer's since 2018, and then his closest friend and manager, John Rambo Stevens, who died of a heart attack at the end of the year. I spoke to him a little bit earlier, and I asked him to explain the thinking behind these conversations we'll be having across Britain.
Yes, I've done several of them and I really enjoyed them. It's kind of like going to a strange pub full of strangers, but you like the scenery and then you adapt to the people around and you find out that you've got lots in common. It's a great evening of comedy, all improv, all made up on the spot, except, of course, the genuine true story, which is the underpinning of it all. A lot of truths to tell and a lot of people out there that are very interested in my perspective on things.
So anything could happen.
It's really excellent. It really is. I mean, people just go out with sore bellies from laughing because it's just my natural way.
Anything off limits?
I suppose not, really.
So anything can happen to these things.
And I am one for the toilet humour, you know.
Yeah. So if easily offended, perhaps give it a swerve, but people won't be going there.
Oh, no. If you're easily offended, head straight for it. You'll be guaranteed entertainment.
Great.
It's all about bums on seats, isn't it? Emphasis on bums.
Very good. And I can see you there. You're wearing a great, slightly ratty Union Jack tie. It's been a long time since you've actually been living here full time. You moved to LA, in the early 80s? That's a heck of a long time ago, but I know you come back a lot. Can you reflect a little bit on the difference between the Britain that you left back then? You felt almost driven out of that country, and it was in a pretty bad way, and the country as it is today?
Oh, I think it's worse now than then. At the time, police harassment and endlessly raiding my house was a bit much for me. And we couldn't get any gigs. We were banned just about all places. And so as a band, we just filled our suitcases and flew to New York, rented a cheap little hovel and kind of expanded from there on. Britain today is so catastrophically disappointing. A lot of this tour that I'm doing will be in seaside towns. And I mean, they really indicate how run down Britain has become. Those used to be fantastic places when I was a kid. Mum and Dad would drag us off there for what felt like hours in a traffic jam. But it was absolutely great. It was working class people throwing sand at each other.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the environment was economically thriving, I suppose, in the seaside towns. Everybody wanted a kiss me quick hat. It was vibrant. And it's not like
so vibrant now, is it?
No, it seems to be full of what they term prospective immigrants, which are really like illegals, not being cared for properly, but then shouldn't have been accepted in such vast numbers because it's created a real animosity in communities. The division, when you import so many people with a completely different point of view, they're not going to adapt to yours. They're going to stay and bring the problems that they allegedly escaping from with them.
John, what is the difference? Because after all, if I could put it this way, we imported the Lydons. We imported your lot from Ireland as well. You were part of, the Irish migrant group in North London.
Yes, and the first thing my mum and dad ever would tell me when I was very young is, "You're British now. Be British and be proud of it." Yeah. Most excellent advice, and I've followed through. Of course, I have derogatory comments on the way the royal family is being manipulated. But as human beings, I've got no problems with them at all. In fact, I feel sorry for them. I think that they're kind of like birds trapped in gilded cages. So when they explode emotionally from time to time, I kind of empathise.
Yeah, well, I suspect, this is only a suspicion, that you won't get many members of the House of Windsor at these gigs, but you might do. What I'm really interested in, what I'm really interested in, however, is, you say...
I hope not. It would influence me too much. I'd go off on a tangent.
You get a little bauble, I'm sure. But, you make the point that Britain is pretty ratty these days and run down, but British people are still the people that you want to have the conversation with in these events,
Heart and soul, and obviously always working class people, because that's what I come from. And when you go to towns like Middlesbrough and Sunderland and you see what the EU has done to them, it's quite awful. They've turned them into IKEA shopping centres, where the local communities have been completely dissipated.
I don't want to get too much into the politics of all of this, John, but I can remember you were a big Brexit supporter at the time. You said the working classes have voted for it. I'm a member of the working classes. I'm with them. And you supported Nigel Farage.
I didn't understand it at the time, and I'll tell you, I still don't.
Well, I was going to ask you if you're a bit disappointed by the result, because we haven't had the kind of revival that you might have hoped for at the time of the Brexit vote.
Oh, I didn't think there'd be a revival, just away from the officious nature and nastiness of Brussels. It's like we didn't vote for these people to tell us what to do and think. And so there it goes, elections and all of that, and my loathing of politicians is quite obvious. But I don't want to be dictated to by people I don't have at least the slightest resemblance of voting for.
You need to be able to kick them out. In the end, you need to be able to kick them out.
Yes. Yeah. And, I'd rather a faltering economy than a dictatorship.
That's very well said. Let me ask you about music, however, because one thing I was thinking about, going back to the original punk age and the early days, is that these were all live events. You were in a room, you could smell the band, you could see the stuff in the air. It was wild. It was in person, yeah? And these days, you're smelling your own armpit there. These days, everything is digitalized, and bands and musicians put stuff out, and it's live streamed or it's streamed on Spotify or whatever, and it's just different.
And some of that stuff is really damn good. I mean, I'm a raver at heart.
Who are you listening to at the moment, John? Who are you listening to?
The world of communication is about up close and personal, and live music is where it works best for me. That by being live on stage, you are putting your head in a guillotine here. If you're awful, you're going to be let known. And I love that. I love that risky element of it. I think it makes for better work and a sense of achievement.
You like the jeopardy of all of that.
Well, in adversity, that's where we shine.
Yeah. Do you think that the age of the great guitar bands is coming to an end? So there's two views on this. There's rock and roll will never die over here, and on the other side there is, do you know what? Everything is nostalgia to us these days. Really, they've run out of ideas. Where do you stand on that kind of debate?
No, I mean, there's bands that have been around since forever. Good luck to them if they want to go out and trot the boards. I've had no attitude or ageism about that. I like variety, and I've never really kind of understood the concept of guitar-led bands anyway. And I think public image shows that, and that we're highly capable and very, very reasonable for our experimentation in other forms of lead instrument. The vocal is always a lead instrument if the words are sensible enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in guitar bands, that's not the case. So I kind of
mostly it's not.
For guitar bands.
Mostly it's not. And I have this image in my head. You may have seen that ABBA did this Avatar version where they're all avatars, and it's all programmed from the back.
Yeah, there's a lot of that AI going on. It should actually be called abattoir because it's like a death of something. So it's not good enough. The real thing was absolutely fantastic. I got to tell you, Sid Vicious's favourite band was ABBA.
No.
Yes.
Good grief!
Oh yeah.
This is the most extraordinary and shocking fact ever to appear on the show. Really.
Yeah, well, maybe in your show, but honestly, a lot of us punks know this to be true. So he famously once. He spotted them in an airport. We were held over because of a snowstorm, and Sid spotted them in their fur coats at the booking desk and ran over. He'd just been sick in the toilet. Well, he was pebble dashed from the neck down, and he wanted to give them a big hug. Poor old Sid. This was Sid's life, a calamity.
Oh, poor old Bjorn as well. Poor old Bjorn as well. So we're not going to see holograms of Vicious and Matlock and yourself, recreating an early Pistols gig ever. You think?
Oh no! I leave that kind of nonsense to Danny Boyle. Isn't that awful? That mockumentary, I called that, because that's like a painting I did, and I love my art, right?
Yeah.
But I don't expect someone else to come and paint over the top of it. And that's more or less what that is, right? It's a distraction, and it's to take away from the original point and purpose of it all, which was to be as honest as possible.
One final question. I paint and I draw myself. Just tell me what you get out of painting, why it's so important, because I know it is.
A freedom, an anxiety release. I don't put anything in art galleries. I do paint album covers. I've always been interested in that because it's the fifth element. You've got the instruments, the singer, and then you've got an oral tapestry, an audio. You've got the audio tapestry in the music, but you've got a visual there.
Yeah.
All right? That's how I see things. And I've always done music according to, in my mind, colours.
That's really, really interesting. So, listen, one final thought. I know that 2023 was a really, really tough year for you. We don't need to go back over why, but I know it was a horrible year. Is this tour a way of kind of, as it were, getting over it, a bit of catharsis, bit of release?
Yes, sir, big time, because I can't be wallowing in self-pity here. There are people far worse off in the world than me, and I'm sure 98% of the audience will be in agreement with that. I have to go out and see if I've still got a place and something to say, all right?
Yeah.
And we'll find out. This is what this is. It's an exploration and an experiment, because it's getting too hard to keep it together now. I've lost two soulmates, one my lovely wife, and my best friend Johnny Rambo.
Yeah.
These are hard cornerstones to have knocked out the foundations of your church of honesty. So I have to do these things now on my own, sort of. Yeah, I'm up for the challenge,
John.
Come what sarcasm will abound.
Well, an awful lot of people listening to this show, John, including me, cannot wait. Thank you very much. Bless you for joining us. Thanks so much. Take care.
May the road rise with you and your enemies be behind you. May they scatter, flatter, batter, and shatter.